Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! So I work at a quite big grocery store and we get a lot of entitled customers. So I'm used to dealing with entitled people, but this one was different. So I'm basically sitting out the rest of my shift behind one of our cash registers, ringing people up and helping when needed with other staff around the store. I had just helped a customer with something when I saw an old lady struggling to get something. So I offered to help. She was quite happy and I asked if she needed help with anything else. To which she replied yes. She asked if I could help with the rest of her groceries since it was a quiet afternoon and we had plenty of staff around. I agreed. We went down her grocery list and one by one, we ticked them off. We were almost done. I was just crouching down to get something when I heard the dreaded voice.
I have been waving at you for quite a while now. Can you help me already?
Me with the best fake helpful voice. I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't see you. What is it you need help with? I'm kind of helping this old lady with her groceries.
Well, first of all, you should look around when helping others. Maybe someone else needs help. Second, I would like a refund on this item.
She showed me an item of which I didn't know we sold, but I said I will be there shortly. She accepted with the usual sighing and eye rolling. After a short 5 minutes, I'm done helping the old lady get her groceries and ring her up.
Are you done already? I've been waiting here for almost 15 minutes.
Ma'am, I'll be there as soon as I've finished ringing up this lady. I ignored the 15 minutes comment because it's no use going against him. My shift was nearly over and I really didn't want to create a fuss. Once I had finished everything with the old lady, I went over to the entitled mother.
Finally, it took you long enough.
I'm sorry, ma'am, but surely you saw that the old lady was struggling. I had to help her first.
Yeah? Well, I have kids in the car waiting for me.
This actually took me back a bit, because it was scorching hot, and I know our parking lot is almost always fully in the sun, so the kids were sitting in a boiling car by now. However, I chose not to comment on this because it's simply not my place to be honest. Alright, what would you like to refund?
This? I bought this item here, but I don't need it anymore.
Ma'am, are you sure you bought this here? Do you have a receipt?
Yes, of course I'm sure. Are you doubting me? The customer is always right.
Ma'am, do you have a receipt?
I'm sorry, what?
Clearly avoiding the question. Me getting tired of this PS. I asked if you had a receipt.
Well, I lost it.
Ma'am, we don't sell these. There is no way you could have bought this here. I'm sorry, but I can't refund you.
What? I'm sure I bought it here yesterday. I want my money back.
Ma'am, like I said, I can't refund this item. We do not sell these.
Let me speak to your manager.
Of course, ma'am. I call the boss through earbud. He asks, what seems to be the problem here?
This jerk won't refund my item. I would like for you to fire him right now.
Ma'am, what item were you trying to refund?
So he's clearly lying.
Ma'am, we don't really sell these. I kindly ask of you to stop bothering my employees.
But I'm sure I bought it here.
By now she starts freaking out, so we ask her to leave the store. She refuses and tries to intimidate my boss. My boss isn't scared by it and just walks away. I return to ringing up other customers as she keeps waiting at the beginning of the store. By now I'm focused on my job again, and I've stopped paying attention to the crazy lady. I finish ringing up a customer, when suddenly a hand goes into my register and grabs a handful of cash. And of course, it's the entitled mother. She tries running away, but another employee tries to stop her. This employee is a friend of mine, but she's quite small. And the entitled mother notices this too. So she tries to look big and to intimidate my friend. And this is where I step in. I guess the entitled mother didn't realize I was sitting down behind the cash register. Because once she sees me coming towards her standing up, her eyes go big and her face becomes red. She probably was around 5'10"-ish, which isn't small for a woman. But I'm 6'5". Once she sees me getting closer, she decides to run for it. I don't go after her and instead asking my friend if she's okay. Her cars and her plates were filmed by our cameras, and she was arrested not long after. I haven't heard too much from it, but I know she got like 200 hours of community service. Moral of the story, please do not be an idiot like her. It was an established, respected family art supply store with about a dozen employees that have been in the same location for decades. Employees were extremely knowledgeable, helpful, and valuable because they know all the local artists. We weren't paid enough every 2 weeks. We'd sometimes work 48 hours week 1. If that happened, they would cut out hours to under 32 hours for week 2. Then the sneaky employers averaged both weeks together so they never paid 1.5 times overtime. The most shocking part to me was that as far as I knew, no other employees had ever made a stink. We were ordered to never discuss our pay with other employees. That probably shielded their scammy method. After the office manager condescendingly explained the averages to me and sent me on my way, I smiled and thanked her for helping me understand. After that, I anonymously called the US Department of Labor to make inquiries. I ratted out the store by name. When I googled the Department of Labor, I found out a law firm advertising to help employees cheated out of overtime pay. Serendipity. Then I told a co-worker friend about it and the two of us contacted as many current and former employees as we could track. A few were mad, but most said they had suspected something. All the while we worked our jobs happily, the same as always. One day an auditor from the government came and returned 2 days in a row. On day 2, the store's actual owner, who was always too bougie and fancy to ever darken the door, showed up all puffed up and smiley, but left all sweaty with a frown. Then it was time to meet with a lawyer. The government made them pay accumulated retro overtime with interest to every employee they had ever done this to. They had to put a notice in the paper, which I know was humiliating for such country club snoots. There was also a big fine. I don't know exactly because I left to go to grad school. I heard 2 long-time employees hired a lawyer and sued not only the store, but the owner and that condescending office manager individually. Bottom line, if when I brought it to her attention the office manager had said, "Oops," and paid me my $192 instead of treating me like a child, they could have saved what I heard turned into $50,000. Cheaters suck, especially rich ones who take advantage of their workers. I, 32 female, was in a major car accident in January of 2021. Ironically, I had been taking my boyfriend, 36 male, to the ER because she had bleeding ulcers and ended up getting admitted to the hospital that night. This was still when they were enforcing COVID rules, so I was booted out of the hospital at about 3 in the morning. When I left, it was snowing, and not thinking hopped on the freeway, which wasn't a good idea. I had been driving a lifted Jeep Cherokee with mud terrain tires. Not the best ever for snowstorm driving. Getting away the freeway to go home, my brakes locked up and I went into a light pole head first at about 60 miles per hour. My Jeep did not have airbags. That was dumb. Needless to say, my car was totaled and I had to be extracted from the car by the fire department. This whole time, I had been blacking out and losing consciousness. And I still get random flashes. I don't have all of my memories from that night or several months after the accident. I got sent to the nearest trauma center, which was the same hospital I had just left. The nurses felt pretty bad about kicking me out. I ended up with a moderate to severe traumatic brain injury, broken under my left eye, hairline fractures on my skull on the left side, bruising behind my ears, and black eyes. I had also cut open the inside of my mouth, had multiple lacerations all over my face. I broke my driver's side window with my face, broke and bruised some ribs, had hairline fractures in my spine, broke my right wrist, my right knee, and my left foot, which required 2 surgeries and I still need approximately 3 more. Needless to say, I was not doing great. I had recently gotten divorced the previous year and think that my entitled parents decided that my accident was my boyfriend's fault. I had to stay in the hospital for a total of 12 days, in which case a mild family drama exploded into a severe family inferno. As I got closer to being released, all I had wanted to do was go home to my boyfriend and our kids. He had 2 previously and I had 1. My entitled mother decided that wasn't what she wanted. On the phone, we sound almost identical. The whole time that I was in the hospital, she had been getting on the phone and impersonating me to my apartment complex management, even going as far as calling the cops to get my boyfriend and his 2 kids removed from my apartment. They were not on my lease yet. My entitled mother also forged my signature on hospital paperwork and made up a history about how my boyfriend was abusive to me and got him banned from seeing me at the hospital. Again, forging my signature and writing a letter stating that I did not want to see him. This whole time I was still suffering from the effects of my TBI and was delirious from the combination of pain medications and brain fog from my head injury. My entitled mother even had the locks changed on my apartment without my consent. When I finally was released from the hospital, I was in a wheelchair because of my broken foot that had just had 2 plates and 10 screws surgically put in to hold it together and an ankle to hip brace on my other leg from my knee being broken. I requested to go home to my apartment, but again, the entitled mother played it that I couldn't go home because I had a 2nd-story apartment and couldn't take care of myself. So I got sent to stay at my parents' house against my will, an hour away from home because my entitled mother wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to let my boyfriend come back to my apartment. I spent almost a whole miserable month there. My entitled mother refused to take me home even after I got crutches and was able to bear some weight. Initially, they refused to even go get my crutches from town because they didn't want me to have more mobility. Eventually, it got to the point where I had a friend come and pick me up from my entitled mother's house so I could go home because they kept refusing to let me go. As I gained clarity in my mind and was taken off the intense pain medication, I was able to start rectifying the situations that my entitled mother made a huge mess in my life, but I'm still trying to recover in some areas. I didn't find out until much later when medical bills started coming in that my mother had called my boyfriend's health insurance company impersonating me and had me removed from his insurance. It took months of calling and badgering and footwork on my part to get the situation figured out and have the insurance pay for what they were supposed to pay for. It almost caused me to go bankrupt. At the same time, the entitled mother signed me up for minimal health insurance coverage through the state that I had no idea I was enrolled in until I got a bill later stating that I back owed fees. Needless to say, I eventually completely composed my entitled mother and my father out of my life after finding out how much they tried to control and how much they messed up my life. I ended up getting protection orders after they tried to break into my house, stalked me, and sent family and friends over to harass me. This whole incident was the straw that broke the camel's back. There was quite a bit of retaliation on their side that threw my life into a total tailspin ever since, but I'm sticking to my guns and not backing down. Matter of fact, I'm on my tiptoes. Once they do any funny business, I'm taking them to court. So, my background. I'm a 35 male. I have worked as a tech programmer post-freelance, then got into the culinary industry. Now I'm back in the tech world as a project manager. I cyber-commute from my parents' store a few days out of the week as needed. Thanks for your sympathy. I cyber-commute from my parents' store a few days out of the week as needed. Thanks for your sympathy. I'm yet again freelancing my work. During the pandemic, I lost my job and went back to school online. Got a bunch of certificates and a degree, but this is key that it was all done online. Story starts months prior. So I was working to form a new task force for a company, and thus I was to work with HR to pick out the best candidates for the team. We needed to hire a few new members. In this particular case, we needed an experienced project lead. So we have some guys in our second round and third round for interviews. As I'm going through their online portfolios with my team members, one guy who had been fast-tracked through the process was moved to the priority position. I start skimming through his various degrees and certifications. I'm pretty much smiling because someone else had decided to do the same thing I did during the pandemic. Same online school. Having a good feeling about him, I download his files rather than just view them through the browser. I notice a chunk of his works have strange metadata. The files weren't exactly lining up with his school dates. No issue yet. Second issue. Some of his works are screenshots of papers saved as image files. My next step is to take his papers and run them through Google. I pick random parts of paragraphs and see if I get any results. Bingo! Each paper he wrote was plagiarized from someone else. I got to his research paper, which his profile highlighted. I read a few lines and wonder who he got this one from. My eyes widened after reading a few more lines. Guess whose paper he copycatted? Mine. Oh, he's not getting away with this one. The revenge. I alert the HR and asked him if I can personally interview this guy and have them present. We met with a copycat last Monday. We give him an interview double-checking information. Then, we give him a mock project as an exam. He smiles with a hee-hee in his voice, saying that he can have this ready in days. We tell him since there is a pending holiday, so to take his time. Mr. Copycat shows us his projected plans and how he'd go about the problem. Also copied/plagiarized. I knew it was going to happen cause I picked a test most likely to be copied. I informed him that for the third interview, we'd be referencing his example work. Another nervous hee-hee-hee in his voice. So we started grilling him with industry-related questions. How he wrote questions, what he meant questions, and a few more about his works. Finally, I get his research paper and lay on the grilling, pressing harder. His replies are mostly, and a lot of answers that didn't make sense. Meanwhile, we'd re-ask how many years he had in the industry multiple times. All the while he'd look back at his example work printed out and try to play off his own works. Finally, he gets some nerve to ask if this grilling was normal for our company. I tell him yes, and with an evil smirk I say, "One last question, so I ran your papers through Google." The copycat freezes up. "It seems your papers seem to be copied by a whole bunch of other people. You know, those academic help sites out there. Referring to some cheat sites out there. Some of your papers were on there too." Copycat wide-eyed. You might wanna look into that. But before you go today, let me just say that I never want to catch you trying to pass my paper as your own. That's right. Your research paper is mine. You copied it. Copycat asked to go to the bathroom before continuing. We excuse him, and he never came back into the interview room. He blocked our phone calls or won't pick up. I just now contacted Google to take down his portfolio page, and I've let the guys at Pose School and LinkedIn know too, if that'll have any help. Rolls eyes. The moral of the story is not to lie in an interview about anything. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.